as he very often does. But if you go back to 24 to 23, he was contesting at the very least for, top 2 mid, obviously Chovy, domestically reigned supreme, but Faker was having very consistent performance. This spring wasn't really about him. Oner in the regular split, and then Doran and Keria towards the end. That I think really turned it on, as the Zaya also gonna get taken away. And the Vi, I feel like kind of a must takeaway. Any pick-based champion, T1 is always going to do exceptional, and also gives JunJia the tools to start fights at his own bidding, and he has been the player that, as I think we'll be talking about for the rest of the day as well, has been the beating heart of this roster.
Definitely has. And you brought up Oner and Keria for the side of T1, right? In playoffs, really the entire team ramping up, but those are the two that stood out to us, and it's the same story for CFO. We know JunJia is the king of this region, right? 6 titles, this man, an absolute monster, playing alongside Kaiwing when they have those tools to get fights kicked off. There's nothing you can do to stop them, and you see already they've got one of those tools in their hands in the form of the Pantheon. But it does mean giving up priority mid laner to Faker, so now the Xin and the Annie, really solid setup.
Oner, exceptional Xin player, will lock it in here. And with those bans, T1, I think, also leaning into that, making sure that Faker will have a relatively comfortable matchup, even in case of something like that Viktor, as it does come through. The early game, Viktor at least has to respect. I think it's not until like 2 free items that you really start getting into trouble with the range disadvantage.
And it's interesting already, we talked about weathering the storm of the early game, right? How do you go up against Keria and Oner? How do you go up against this T1 roster who is so willing to fight you for everything? Sometimes against their own best interests, right? We've seen great moments, we've seen some sloppy moments. And the answer from CFO seems to be, we're gonna scale. They are set up for a beautiful front-to-back composition. Yes, Pantheon could do a lot of work in the early game, but when you see Sion, when you see Viktor, we're a jinx away from a 2018 team composition.
Does leave me wondering if CFO is going to be able to deal with the mid-game barrage that T1 really throws every team's way. Final series that they fought against HongQ, the final game was basically over at 10 minutes. A single dive towards the top side was all it took. And CFO, as mentioned, even though they, in a lot of the games in their finals against GAM, were able to comfortably get to the point where, especially with draft like this, they should be fine. Sometimes the Baron call's not quite there. Some flippy decision-making. And against T1, who are notorious for really grabbing Barons that probably don't belong to them, gonna be a risk. As we do see the Rel taken away, obviously. No supports picked up yet, unless we see some really weird flexes. And I am fairly certain that T1 is going to be looking to counterpick for Keria. One of the biggest advantages that this player has is, as was highlighted by the desk, is a collective champion pool.
Seems nearly infinite. The question is not can he play it, the question is has he played it yet, more often than not. But C, is that has gotten them into trouble once or twice, right? Do they want to go full steam ahead on early game?
Yeah.
Go for something like the Elise, or maybe a more conventional option? But clear. Again, no matter where you go, Vancouver loves T1, no surprise. Legendary organization for CFO. Be monumental for them to find a win. It's only game 1. It's a bit of a scaling draft on their side. T1, 1-2 items looking pretty dang powerful.
Is it Jin?
Yeah, what's the blind here? Jin seems solid with the setup that they have, but you need someone who's going to get through that Sion in later stages of the game.
Would be a Guma comp. They're going to instead save a counter pick for Guma. They're going to pick Neeko, so by that also making a possible Renata, which I think is one of the few non-engaged supports that Kaiwing's play a little bit harder to actually pull off.
Sorry, there's a Krug sign. It's a very well-drawn Krug.
The Krug Lord, it's stuck.
Look, you get the good with the bad with Doran, You get the Krugs.
It's just Doran.
Well, and we watched that today, right? He died to Krugs and then popped off immediately afterwards. So perhaps it's the source of his power is Ezreal, safe pick, right? You're in the position where you're forced to blind pick. You do get the luxury of counter pick support. But again, one of the downsides of Kaiwing is we haven't seen that depth of his champion pool. So you having counter pick isn't as big of a deal. Probably going to default to more comfortable options. And Braum, again, good in the front to back, but I don't know if I like it. Bard would be a bit bolder.
I'd rather see something like that. I think playing the Braum into the Neeko is already rough. I also think you need some semblance of early pressure. Leona also very obviously does that job. As the Kaisa, it makes sense in the draft, but Corki, I think a little bit more aggression in the lane was something that T1 has generally relied on.
The debate here. as they flick back and forth between both options. The Kai'Sa, as we get later in the game, very good at locking down or keeping up with that Ezreal, but the Corki much more powerful early on.
Will make the most sense for T1, and they're going to go towards that. So the CFO draft, if you load into the Rift on 2 items, absolutely slaps. Incredible. And there
is that a game mode? Did I miss
well,
that?
Not in this game though, because when you look at the pieces, the front to back later on is absolutely insane. You have a great amount of CC, spread damage profile, a lot of really, really big threats. The problem obviously is when you look at the 2v2, Pantheon Viktor compared to something like that Annie and Zhao, contesting early objectives is going to be really hard. And the reason why I go in so hard on it is because T1 absolutely is not going to give you the time to skill. So you're going to have to fight early. There are some pressure points, right? JunJia, maybe together with Kaiwing, can get it going early, but they will need to because T1 is going to take the fight to them.
Yeah, that early game you brought up, weathering the storm, the story for CFO. We know they can play the map pretty well as we get in the later stages of the game, and they certainly have the tools put together in picks and bans, but a tall task. However, the key ingredient we talked about, Kaiwing, JunJia, having those tools is present in this draft. But as we've seen in other games across this tournament, if you don't have prio in your lanes, if you can't free up that Leona to roam, it can fall apart very quickly. So eyes on both sides to see who's going to be in form on the day and what level 1 strategies they might bring to bear.
Whenever there is a sign involved, I'm going to be looking at the level 1 Drakos.
Outside said make some noise, Vancouver. More than happy to oblige. We get ready for game 1. CFO versus T1, the last of our first round matches. Perhaps a date with destiny for T1 as BLG stand waiting. First, they're going to have to go through CFO. And it's a quiet game 1. Again, in some of these matchups, we're seeing teams who've already gone through plans, got the jitters out, maybe less afraid to go all in the first few seconds of a game, but CFO and T1, first look we're going to have for them.
No latent fates. It looks like maybe a little bit for vision here. So we do have Driver making his way over, but don't really have that much Fred. If there was a Braum involved, maybe as a, yeah, we got to bring it up again. That's insane.
It is insane. This is, there's no one better in the entirety of LCP than JunJia. This is a world-class jungler, no doubt in my mind, and normally when you go up against T1, you see Oner on the opposite side, you start to sweat, but I think CFO is still a question as to who will come out on top. You feel a lot better knowing that JunJia is the one holding down your early game. He's the man that you have backing you up.
And taking a look at the rune setup, Faker, usually on the Annie, we very often see the Electrocute, going to be the Phase Rush instead. So a little bit more potential of getting out of some sticky situations. HongQ going for Aerie, so as we saw already there, trying to just play for as much lane pressure as possible. I think the first couple of levels for Viktor are honestly great. Into the Annie, it's really post-6 where you need to be a lot more careful as already, as we were expecting, a lot of fighting here for that early prio in the bot lane.
Quick Zenith Blade, but doesn't amount to too much. Again, range advantage, the biggest thing here at level 1. HongQ continues to trade with a fast level 2. Faker stuns back and keeping the phase rush procced, also just to make the gravity field less of a concern. HongQ, though, playing with a lot of confidence.
Good trades. And you really want to try and do that as much as possible. I think Viktor, when it comes to his one spike, doesn't quite hit as hard, especially if it's going to be that Rod of Ages build. Whereas the Annie, particularly if Zinza can make his way over, is a possible bot lane gank.
JunJia on the way down. Guma, the stun, the immediate CC on the Keria. They know he's not the one with cleanse. An easy first pickup for the side of CFO.
And the heal from Keria gets invested initially to dodge away from Kaiwing, but as you highlight, JunJia haven't even finished his first clear, already making an impact as he's able to, as you highlight, go for the target that doesn't have a way out. Guma, even though he was level 2, if he ends up dinging to free, gets the Valkyrie, that could have been a big problem. Has the cleanse as well, but Keria, no way out of the CC for him. It's Doran on the Aatrox, as you would expect. It's going to be feeling great here into the Sion up until the first back, and then Sion is going to shrug off a lot until you really get enough ability haste to continuously chew through that ginormous shield that is going to be there for Driver.
Yeah, Soul Furnace, a very, very powerful ability. And
yeah.
I'm curious to see what Driver is able to do with the Sion. There was a fun interview with Zhao where he talked about some inspiration from the boss coming out for Driver. So maybe if he manages to find a lead, we see some proxying. But first he's going to have to find that lead, or at the very least be able to crash that wave.
Yeah, this matchup isn't fun. We'll see. Driver, as long as he can get his creeps, doesn't actually get taken down, he's not going to be too bothered. There's Oner on this Zhao, maybe looking for a player towards the bot side. There are still sums available, so it looks like instead just going to go for the base, not wanting to flip too much. And Ezreal, notoriously not the easiest, and nor is Leona to dive.
Opting to back out, but he does drop double wards. So vision on red, vision on the Raptors as well. Will spot out JunJia starting that camp. Faker and HongQ just continue to trade. And honestly, very quiet game.
Leisurely start.
Kind of as expected, I would say, in terms of some of the champions that we have.
It's post-6, right? That I think we're really going to see once the first objectives start. There isn't something like the Elise and the Fairy where you're really going to be looking to just dive on one of the first couple of waves.
And credit to Doran, he is not letting Driver charge a single decimating smash. Always staying in range, willing to tank a little bit of extra damage just to cancel the knock-up. Keep that wave forward as
here he is again.
He's going to spot JunJia. 2 Gumas. Only one of them has cleanse, a difficult puzzle. As Oner now ready to make the dive happen topside. Have to respect the zombie passive from Sion, but Driver in a tough spot here. Wind becomes lightning, a quick flash out, extra shielding, and Doran forced to flash away. Oner should just finish the job, but now the tower's hitting him. He has to flash as well. T1 grab the kill, but maybe not the cleanest execution.
We'll be able to get it. Having to invest a second flash obviously feels rough. Really good timing for Driver on the shield, which was the main thing that kept him alive for a little bit longer. It starts off great. Oner primes his Q, gets the auto. Doran sets him up with the Q1, but if Doran had backed, I think that is just a very clean dive, but hadn't actually spent any money yet, so not enough AD to chew for the Sion that quickly. Still though, early lead for T1. Not going to be the end of the world. Sion of all champions obviously will be fine, regardless of him getting put behind a little bit early.
Yeah, still has 170 extra health, so you can see at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And TP's used to reset lane matchups here, so or they swap as now Driver in the bottom side of the map, Doran going to respond as well.
And now the Bramble, yeah, Bramble Vest is there. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's an extremely strong item into Aatrox, very unfun. Can't believe he did that. Building armor.
Look, man, we talked about it. We're waiting for someone to build Serpent's Fang. We love the item. It's probably not this game. I don't think the Sion shield is enough. But with a Viktor, I'm just saying there's an angle. For now, though, Doran, you can see playing with a little bit more respect. Of course, the World Ender, super powerful, but the potential for gank setup with JunJia, if he is lurking in the darkness with Sion level 6, is lethal.
And what we do have is a good amount of vision being set up here in the jungle of T1. For what I imagine later on will be a heavy contest on that from CFO. Does mean that while JunJia goes for that invade, T1 is able to get the first dragon of the game. I don't really think there is too much counterplay. Driver will be making his way over, and oh, JunJia has ults. They might want to try and steal.
In, Oner on the way forward, but now manages to take it down. So it's going to cost his life. They get the Drake, but now it's all in from the side of CFO. Perfect gravity field. They're going to grab another one on top of it. Faker taken down, drops the bear. But in the blink of an eye, it goes from passive to insane aggression from the side of CFO.
And T1, usually the one doling out the aggression, but CFO, with a great rotation, catching them off guard. Blowing up Oner, doesn't have his ultimate available. That means that there is no way for him to stall out this play, and you can see, I don't think they were really expecting to go this crazy. Driver goes in, gets the knock-up, and not a lot of counterplay available there. And just giving up Oner for Dragon, not that rough, but the fact that Faker ends up dying as well, it's a really big win here early on, because any early kills that you can get for CFO bring you closer to that promised item break point that we talked about earlier, when you're really starting to see the power of this Sion, this Viktor, as well as this Ezreal.
Guma taking a decent chunk here, even without a Sheen completed, is now Doran doing what he can to zone Driver away. Willing to proxy himself if necessary.
The proxer?
I mean, look, fire with fire, as it was. And I think for T1, you highlighted it so well, right? If they get that Drake, if they're closer to soul stacking, it puts them in a comfortable position as we go later into this game, but losing those few kills is rough.
I like Bramble Vest.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need to.
But more is better, right? That's pretty universal.
When it comes to kills, yes. When it comes to flashes blown, as HongQ does get his blown there by the timely arrival. And even despite some of that control we saw set up earlier, T1, they get one, but CFO not going to let them have more for free.
And you know, I'm going to check to make sure that's not a visual bug. Could you just yap for 30 seconds? Because either I have missed a very elaborate math Reddit thread.
No, I think it was just a mistake.
Okay,
looks like he sold it. Pick up the chain vest.
He didn't think he'd have that much gold early game.
Well, it might also just be you want to get Bramble against Aatrox, right? Sometimes it's just muscle memory.
Sure.
We'll be pivoting away, but something to keep in mind if we do have some very specific breakpoints down the line. Thus far, though, really impressed with the early game that CFO have been able to show. For as good as they were, I think we saw this even in the final game that they played of their playoffs against GAM, where they really mostly relied on just slowing the game down. So seeing them take control early definitely feels good, but there is a lot more skirmishing to be done. And T1 on that one, kind of caught sleeping. We'll see if CFO
also has to be careful. He's just going to jet out of the river there.
It's fine. Faker needs to catch the wave.
Yeah, it'll work out fine as Doggo going to grab a quick flower. Try to get some pressure here in the bottom lane. Earlier we saw on our screen, Driver not quite able to cancel any of those recalls, and the ulti coming out from Doggo wasn't able to do it either. Very close, though, to putting T1 in a difficult position in terms of resets and tempo on the map. Now, however, 1K difference, not the end of the world for the comp that we generally look at as scaling better. Certainly feels like a strong early boon. Doran, though, holding on to his individual advantage at the very least. And he is a player that we have our eyes on. Yeah, always going to. As mentioned, Doran has been consistently one of the top laners within the LCK since he joined JunJia. But unfortunately, it has also been met with equal level of troubles when it comes to the international performance. Do want to highlight, with that early kill, HongQ, by the way, already starting on that Rod of Ages. I do think where the Viktor goes next is going to be a really big factor as to whether he's actually going to be doing damage. We've seen a lot of Viktors go for builds that feel like hit a little bit too late as quick heal out.
The ult.
Pantheon on the way down. Good value, though. The heal for that ulti, for double ultis, does give T1 a window of opportunity to fire back.
I think you're pretty happy with that as T1, because Drake spawns in a minute. That's going to give you possible angle. At the very least, it means that JunJia won't be able to join or get backline access quite as easy as, oh boy.
JunJia locked up, burst damage ready to go. Aegis assault, but Faker waits it out before throwing down his cooldowns. It might cost him though. HongQ ulti there, but Faker zooming out to safety courtesy of the phase rush. JunJia still living for an extra moment. Nice flash over the wall, but Oner ready to follow, as is Kaiwing. Going in for the 2v2. Oner a little bit tankier. Keria ready to follow up. Jungle supports on both sides. Still standing. Q in. It's not quite enough damage, but the E over the wall. The ready to finish it, which Keria is real. The flash one is the right choice as Guma's lower and lower. Fights on multiple fronts. T1 losing so many kills.
And CFO, I think not going to be too sad about that. T1 trying to be tricky, but looking a bit sloppy on the re-engage. I felt like they had an exit after they got the summoner out of JunJia, but wanted to go for more.
Zoning Faker out, denying the reset. Gonna slow him down that much more. Faker does have TP, but may be forced to use it to return to lane. Doran, in the meantime, though, is the one where this is paying off, getting those extra plates.
As we take another look here, this initial play is great, right? Able to do a lot of damage towards JunJia, trying to catch him off guard. Makes a lot of sense. But what happens next is JunJia gets over the wall. Keria basically whiffs the ult because of the flash. And then the immediate response from Kaiwing. Oner doesn't actually connect the W and the damage onto JunJia. And then when he goes back in, while that was happening, HongQ took Faker effectively out of the fight. Faker's not able to join. Without the Annie, you're missing so much damage. And while all of that was happening, Doran also made his way over with the TP, which was what allowed Driver in the top lane to get a ton of damage on that turret.
And what a reaction. Honestly fair. JunJia, well-played fight though, right? Gets Keria's ulti before flashing over the wall. Really what keeps that so close. As Driver now matched up against Faker, we'll see where they want to send HongQ. Side lane versus Zeus Doran. Wow, big faux pas there. Doran, as they keep this going, is going to be tough.
As Doran, sitting on the Thunder Sky right now, has his Merc Treads done as well. On the flip side, we see Driver still fine when it comes to the item finishes. I think that time alone towards the top side, even the Doran got some plates and damage done towards the bottom half of the map's not going to be too sad as Doran should be known this is coming. We see the pings come down, but I don't think he can hold there. JunJia's in the area, has his ultimate available. I think he uses it.
Sundered Sky trying to clear the wave. It's a bit of a desperate game, but World Ender now coming out. Massive damage, but Doran lives for an extra second. Needs one more Sundered Sky proc. Gets the auto! He's still up! The outplay! Doran lives for far too long. HongQ can't get it done. Doran, are you kidding me?
That's vintage Lord, baby! As Doran somehow lives through that.
The patience, the gusto to dive forward. The Sundered Skyprox coming through. His driver's now caught out. Should be no way out of this one, but the Sion is damn tanky.
That's Flash.
Flash away. Kaiwing there to cover. But this is a disastrous sequence for CFO, and almost 1,000 gold lead starting to shrink now as the counterpunch is Faker pushing for free on the top side, nearly knocking down that tier 1 tower.
And the early game back and forth here. That play, obviously T1 going to be happy with. They got the flash. Faker will be getting the turret here. But do note, Doran did mess up on a good amount of CS because even with the counter kill that he got, the healing from that kill while Zot was still ticking, obviously allowing him to stay alive. HongQ was able to then immediately push onto the turret, letting some CS go to waste. As we take another look here, so T1 I think was very aware that this was happening. First Doran tries to clear the wave, not actually able to do so. The flash means that there isn't enough damage, and then right there, the heal from Sundered Sky, as well as the fact that right afterwards he gets the heal from that turret aggro. Just Kaiwing unfortunately dropping it a little bit too late. There were 4 people there. You can drop it earlier, and he would have died.
But I'm also, what is Sundered Sky with Aatrox healing amp? 606 health. So incredibly powerful. Now Doran knocking down the tower as well, while the rest of the map has been a bit of a bloodbath. He's really just been holding it down on the top side for T1, almost an 800 individual gold lead, but it's CFO who had the setup around Herald first as we went into that replay and are so far holding on to it pretty well. Triforce spikes on both sides for both AD carries.
Drake's 1-to-1 right now. JunJia starting up Herald. T1 clearly do want to contest. Sums available for almost everyone, not for Guma, not for Doggo. All of which are in this fight. Let's see whether Faker can get onto the backline. And for JunJia, the target selection is going to be bigger for CFO. TP comes in.
This is a hard fight for T1. Fighting into the Viktor can be difficult, but luckily they have the Hex Gates to back them up. It's Keria on the backside. CFO have spotted it, but it might not matter. Quick lockup. Faker there as well. They've isolated the Neeko. Keria in trouble. Burning, cut down by the ulti of the Viktor. CFO, good patience, good discipline. How many teams have been caught out by a flank like that?
2 telegraphed. CFO, see Keria make his way over, like, we can see you. We know this is coming. As Driver.
Going forward. Can't quite drift it.
Thought more was going to happen.
Yeah, as did I.
That's okay. As we probably going to take a look, that means the Herald does go over to CFO. So this early back and forth still ongoing. And as highlighted, I think that does benefit CFO if they're able to play their own game, if they're able to slow it down. Even disregarding the draft, right, where I think that the T1 composition, when we get later to the game, the damage will always be there, but you are going to be extremely reliant on just finding one target and blowing them up. And let's be real, it's going to be Sion, which very hard. JunJia with his E, as
you can see here a bit of a contrast.
The bottom
production
one,
beautifully highlighting Worlds 2013 picker was 17, HongQ was 6. 2 different generations of League of Legends player, and credit to HongQ in this first game. He has not faltered, he has not stumbled. You highlighted it, Faker, really good playoffs, not as good of a regular season. And in this Annie matchup, hasn't been able to really do a whole lot yet.
Well, I've also seen that T1 in draft was very clearly trying to get a decent matchup for Fake, get him on the Annie, which always can have an impact, but Cosmic Drive now done for HongQ as well, and we're starting to hit the item breakpoints that I was talking about for CFO. Almost the second item on Ezreal as well, with the transformation for Doggo. JunJia should be getting close, but it's the skirmishing where they need to remain vigilant. We've seen T1 so many times, just a single catch on a player can snowball very, very swiftly, and with Hextech Drake in particular, I don't think either team can afford to give that soul over.
No, they certainly can't. We are pretty far away, as it's only the 3rd Drake of the game up and available. Both teams tied at 1 apiece. Gold lead slightly in favor of T1, but remember, we generally favor the scaling of CFO more, and it was a bit of a misstep around Drake that gave those early kills to CFO, and they've been in a pretty decent spot ever since then. Doran, again, the strong point of this team, now alongside Guma, as the Herald is going to crash, but won't quite finish the tower. CFO just using it to get mid-prio to start this objective, but again, have to be careful. They don't have concrete information on where Doran is, and now it's Keria on the flank. CFO, knock up from Driver.
Like 5 angles
Faker and Guma ready to go. CFO, where are they going to go? They're going to start here. Instant ulti laid down by HongQ. Doran off on the side for now, uncontested, but it's Oner who's in trouble. In the meantime, Kaiwing going in. The ball damage coming in from Driver. It's Keria on the back line with the 3-man knock-up. So damn patient. And CFO are getting sent packing, retreating back to their side of the rift, but it might not be enough. JunJia on the way out. Driver frontlining, trying to buy space for the rest of the team as T1 take the fight.
And though the response from Doggo on the Annie play was great, that meant no cooldowns were available for when Keria went in. And T1 with a multi-pronged approach actually coming in from a lot of different angles. CFO, we're mostly aware of all of them, but it's so hard to get kind of the front to back that we talk about, right? You want Viktor behind the 2 tanks, but you have Doran coming in on one end, Keria coming in from another, and I want you to look at the attempted engage here. Oner gets his ult off, which means they can't kill him. And then right here, Faker goes for a big Annie play, but both HongQ and Doggo flash, but then Keria is there to ensure that the CC lands, the fight starts, and the moment the kill is found, Doran is just gonna keep going and going and going on this Aatrox. And CFO have to abandon ship. Now pick on Faker.
Faker caught out. Shield of Daybreak. Double TP is now coming in to back up the play. It's going to be an all-out brawl on the top side. Faker living for an extra moment. Driver going to find the knock, but should finish the kill. But Doran is here, as is Oren. Doran. Double Doran. As Oner is here. Keria on the way. Guma stepping up. Oner finds a nice initial bit of damage at the Chaos Storm. They need to back away. Brew going in, Doran caught out, knock up there, a beautiful full channel on the decimating smash. And now they need to get the hell out. Oner living for a little bit extra time. Nice knock up onto Doggo, those he oversteps. It's all eyes on HongQ. He has to make the difference, but he's caught between 3 members of T1. It looked good for a brief moment, but T1 just outplaying in the fights.
And in the longer skirmish, T1 get the better of CFO. No dare. Despite it, oh, Keria.
Keria. Locking up JunJia, Driver trying to clear the wave. Oner on the chase, one becomes lightning. JunJia forced to flash out. And this is the thing, it's so scary about T1. So many teams would have just backed off after that play. He felt fine to start the Wolves, but T1 is still going for that little bit extra, as now they're set up to take this tier 1 mid.
And CFO actually like that they call the bluff. A lot of teams in the LCK often start, when you see Faker inside, is this really an overstep, or is the rest of T1 there? And as we can see, the rest of T1 does arrive, but it's a little bit too late, as Faker does take so much damage and the double TP is available. So the initial blow of the fight, I think, looks great here for CFO. We have, with the ultimate, obviously HongQ is still full health, but I think they should have just left. Because if they leave at this point, even without a turret, they're fine. Instead, they see an opportunity to go in on top of Doran, but Oner on the Zinza, I want you to look here, splits up the fight, gets the flash knock up onto Doggo, and then with no health bars on his tanks, HongQ just readily available for the T1 backline to get on top too.
And it looked so good. But again, the story of the fight is Doggo feels like he's in this position to clean up, or burns these cooldowns to dodge this key ability, and then someone from T1 is always there to punish. Again, T1, if you don't know their story, you probably don't know League of Legends. But a team that, a bit of a different road to MSI, not the favorites. Many people favoring HLE above them, but the truth of this T1 lineup, almost regardless of the players who are playing on it, is that when it matters, they always manage to find that form.
They really do. Third in the regular split. That said, CFO definitely not out of it. Regaining control is a little bit tough in this scenario, though. Obviously, these choke points are very dangerous. This Driver.
On a Driver, a bit of free poke. Keria off to the side, really determined to take away that engage option. Keria getting lower and lower. Pop lost a little bit extra shielding, but Doggo managed to finish it. And all eyes, they've forgotten entirely about the Otacon. They're forced to pull back. Driver traded in the meantime. It's just the 1-for-1 support for a top laner. But now the re-engage. Faker finds his man, and Oner and Guma are there to follow. Doggo now. Doran locked up for a moment. They should be able to finish that one. They need to get the hell out. When becomes lightning, does not connect. T1 can't follow up. And Otacon is still alive, crucially, but Oner wants to push a little bit more. Take this wave out, deny a little bit more in terms of resources overall, demand a response from the side of CFO.
That too is Doran, as he jumps into 2 people, gets blown up before the rest of his team arrives. Not quite ready for the damage that Doggo was going to dish out. But the story of a lot of these skirmishes become, initially doesn't look too bad, but as the fight continues, T1 just out-executes. So Driver going down here, that's not the end of the world. You get the snipe on the carrier, you can just leave it at that. Your poke is really, really good. But I want you to see what happens to CFO instead. They think they smell weakness, and the turn here, that's not a flash. That's just straight up a Tibbers. You can see the passive. They walk into it anyway. As
I had to double check too. Wait, did he just get a bear without flashing? The answer is yes.
We do see the Aatrox not taken by T1, so the gold lead is slowly increasing, but CFO, I think if they ironically slow it down in the fights, I think they've been good about contesting the objectives, being where they need to be. But T1 are, I think, in the LCK the best at feigning weakness. Doran in particular, we saw this a lot during the playoffs as well. Like, oh, I have a low health bar, walking in, walking back. Trying to bait people in is JunJia.
I think it's good that you highlighted, although hold that thought just in case a fight does break out.
Dragon.
Remember, even though Doran is a new addition to this lineup as of this year, the four-man core of this T1 team have played together for so damn long. That level of coordination you really do get to see in the fights where they're so comfortable playing across multiple fronts. HongQ, though, will break this tower. Doran there to respond and clear the wave. Dragon, the center of attention for both sides. Potential soul point for T1. CFO looking to deny it. Wave pushed in bot side, gonna force a response from Faker. They see him now, gives him a little bit more access to step up.
Doran on a deep flank, but he did get spotted. We see the pings go down. I think they want to try and collapse.
Doran waiting over the wall. Umbral Dash takes him out. But the wave cleared bot side. Just continuing to poke. Doggo with the red buff, pretty crucial. HongQ continues to walk up. Oner ready to go in. JunJia starting the fight all on his lonesome, but here comes Driver. The real Guma caught out. Pop Boss with his trying to save the day, but it's too late. CFO winning the fight so far. HongQ is so damn strong, and he's just taking over the fight. Doggo here as well. T1 thought they had the angle, but Driver and JunJia together are doing work.
And at first the engage from JunJia looks like there's no follow-up. The Zhao obviously going to be really hard to take down. But Doran already poked, and then Driver comes in. Drives right into the backline of T1 as they get blown up. And now T1's the one you think about when you see these Barons, but it's CFO that's going to be taking the first one in this series.
A 25-minute Baron rush in game one going to CFO, unprecedented. The question on our minds as we entered this series was, can they weather the storm of the early game? And so far the answer is yes, and not only that, able to find these fight angles. It's not just T1 who can fish for the creative fight starts or flanks. CFO matching.
So Doran is already out of this fight. Kaiwing able to slow him down, and then look at this angle right here. Do note Faker isn't here. He actually has to TP in. He was setting up for Aatrox. And the rest of the team just caught out without the Annie. There isn't enough damage. A beautifully segmented fight from CFO. Gonna get them the Baron. I imagine gonna get them the Dragon as well, and possibly also Aatrox, as now they make their way over into the river. And with this Baron, Rebel Baron power play already at 2.5k gold. I don't know if T1 can contest these objectives.
And this is going to be a massive gold shift because there's still tier 1s on the top side. There's still double objectives in the bottom lane, and you can see the start of what felt like an inevitable red tide. T1 on this red side just doing so much work, but CFO fighting back, putting themselves in a good position. Doesn't seem like they want to overcommit to the Aatrox. The resist shred still terrifying against a champion like the Annie, but JunJia is starting it. Doran waiting in the darkness.
Oh, T1. This is the only thing that's a bit precarious. Aatrox obviously insanely strong at shredding teams.
Hexgate looking for the flank. Immediate retreat coming in for CFO. Driver forced to ult early, and all of CFO are on the way out. T1
retaking control, but I don't think that they can do this either, and they know they just want to stall, right? Just
but this is
run
fine.
out this Baron.
Think about CFO being in this position, it makes it easy because T1 don't need to worry about anything else on the map. They don't have a good top wave to play around. No towers are under threat. T1 just keeping them here is taking away all that Baron time.
Kaiwing on the ward. On the ward!
Kaiwing wants to go extra tanky, but not tanky enough. Kaiwing lives for an extra moment. Now the fight's going to kick off. Pantheon comes down from the sky, but he's caught between Faker and Oner, and they make it look effortless. The Aegis Assault can't block an assault from both sides. And in goes Keria! CFO had all the tools, all the advantages, and in a blink of an eye, they just disappear.
T1, a single moment of weakness, Kaiwing goes down. And that they probably could have gotten away with, but CFO, to their detriment, want to try and salvage the situation. as they run with Baron buff, by the way. Could have backed off, just shoved out the waves and denied the opportunity, but instead they go in so deep as JunJia goes in alone. Doggo isn't here yet, Driver isn't here yet. And HongQ trying to help out his teammate already uses his sums, and then Keria finds the free man ultimate. But even if he didn't, at that point, I think the fight's already rough. Plus the fact that Aatrox was right there.
And while we're watching the replay, T1 just took 2 towers and Aatrox. That brief glimmer of hope, if we can see the gold graph again. A single blip in the entirety of this game where CFO had that big advantage, and now we're right back to 3K in favor of T1.
Yeah,
there it is.
I was going to call for
a little tiny blip of blue hope taken away in the blink of an eye. T1, they're just terrifying in those fights.
I was waiting for that. That's at CFO, not losing any of their inhibs. Also not losing the dragon, so no soul point, but obviously you have that to force from those plans, plus the already, I think, strong team fighting from T1 going to be bolstered by the explosion from the Aatrox. And for CFO, the biggest story has been the decision-making in these fights. Right, going a little bit too aggressive, playing ball with T1 just for a little bit too long. And T1, they're always going to throw down, as we see, sometimes to their detriment.
Very true.
This is what they do.
And you can see in the fights that CFO start on their terms, they look much more comfortable. But in the even fights, where it's about skirmishing, where it's about poking and prodding and trying to find those angles of attack, T1 showing their experience.
The TP.
It's a TP from behind. JunJia not quite in a great position, might be caught out here. TP and Gravity Field the response, but flash in from Faker. They want to take the mid laner out of the equation. HongQ goes golden for a brief moment. Driver going to try to peel as best he can, but down goes the Viktor as Keria grabs the kill. Resurrection coming in for Oner. All they got was the GA on the other front in the fight, and T1 feeling comfortable on the top side.
Could have been worse for CFO, as HongQ does go down, but a GA plus a couple of summoners. Not the worst trade. It's about the aftermath. I think this initial play not too bad, but if they lose Driver as well.
Driver, lock up again, the Sion falling.
Again!
And the play doesn't end when T1 are on the map. You have to back off. You have to give them that respect, because they will always take just a little bit more, as yet another tier 2 will fall. And it's a situation where we expected that as we got later into the game, if T1 couldn't run over in the early game, hey, it might be tough for them. But
yeah,
the way they're executing in these fights is just so much better.
Well, it is also the T1 composition. As long as they can keep coming in as they have been doing from different angles, if you don't get the front to back, then the CFO comp will struggle a lot more. Right? Viktor in particular, notorious for, can do insane amounts of damage. But once you get on top of him, particularly with a lot of the more beefy characters on T1, can't shoot for them in time. We'll be getting closer to his death cap. One needlessly large rod done. Also approaching a 4th item on Doggo. Maybe those are the breakpoints. See if I can try to play towards, but I also gotta be honest with you, Drakos. I've seen T1 in these type of scrappy games before, and that's how they like it.
Yeah, and I think for HongQ, a player who had that massive lead caught out in the previous fight, he needs to play flawlessly because he's staring down Faker with a book. First game, obviously an honor always to play against the GOAT, but that's tough. You were winning, you did have the lead, and now Faker's chasing as many stacks as he can get.
Ooh, Oner starting the objective.
Solar Flare going a little bit wide. It is the fake Faker, however. Keria just gonna lose the Celestial opposition. Still, crucially has the Proto Bell up and available.
All they need to do is just stall for Doran, right? Doran can always TP in case an engage does come through. And now CFO spotted. But I think the opportunity has passed to try and actually look for a play. So that's going to be Soul Point going over as
Ezreal
did get called out. We see Doran hold off on the damage for a little bit.
Third Drake for the side of T1 now. Soul Point, 5K gold lead. 17 more flowers on top of that. The only lead left, or the only lane left with an advantage is mid lane. But it's just so difficult for CFO to come in to find that front to back you talked about. Often it hinges on having better vision setup, better prio, but they've had to concede so many side waves just to be able to fight 5v5.
And T1 consistently retaking control, denying vision. All they need, particularly with these Hextech gates, which we've already seen one of the plays didn't end up working out for Keria. Faker was able to make his exit, but repeatedly, you don't know who's coming over. Can be the Doran on Aatrox, can be Keria, can be fake Keria. It's hard to, or rather, Keria faking to someone else. Yep.
Could be fake anybody. You
Does
highlighted it
mean-
well. The thing about it is they've done a good job of tracking one player. Faker, Keria, but both at the same time is so difficult, and if they forget about one, we've seen how quickly a team fight can turn.
Doran now also has the death stance done. Look at that HongQ. He is getting close to the death cap. That's such an immense spike. Viktor approaching max level as well. The only gold lead that's still there. But he needs to be able to play the game, right? He needs to actually be able to get multiple spell rotations off. The rest of the team needs to keep him safe. It's easier said than done when T1 keep coming in from 15 million different angles at the same time as Baron is up. Both teams gravitating towards that.
T1 still steady and controlled around this objective, using the Neeko clone as much as they can to face check into those brushes, getting mid-prio before they lay down their vision. It looks like reset's coming through, so a moment for CFO to try and get something. Ulti in to cancel. Good vision coverage. They just want to delete the support before the fight even starts. Keria running for his life. He's going to burn down. Ignite should just take him out. Kaiwing grabbing that one, but Faker's waiting over the wall. The bear dropped, but not on a crucial target. HongQ and Driver not able to get into the fight, but the TP coming in. Doran going to flash to the side. He has to be the difference maker. Immediate ulti out. Doggo for now uncontested as the Timbers blocks as much damage as possible. Doran isolated on the side, but he's got the attention of two, and Oner's looking to take down Doggo.
And Doran might go down, but he did his job. Stall, as one of the most dangerous members on CFO, didn't get to join the fight. And Keria goes down, but the positioning that CFO put themselves in didn't do them any favors. The damage from Faker was enough, and now Baron started up here for T1.
They got Keria. They got Doran, but it doesn't look like it's enough. Guma, Oner, Faker still standing strong. Quick stun onto Driver. Gravity Field will lock up Faker for a brief moment. Decimating Smash doesn't connect. Objective going to be soloed out by Oner, and a quick retreat as they manage to grab the Baron, and now CFO need to get the hell out. Unstoppable is the Sion, but HongQ is going to be in trouble. Has to flash away as the sun flies through the air. Faker layering the skills beautifully. Tibbers laid down, and down goes HongQ.
T1, that might just be it. They're going to be able to get Driver as well. They have the Baron buff.
Keria respawning. Able to find the CC. Driver zoned off. Recalls in the mid lane from Faker. He can TP right back if he needs to. Ulti down mid to try and clear, but in the blink of an eye, no opportunity to scale, no soul in this game. T1 poised to end it here. A brief glimmer of CFO hope, but that's all we got to see. Otherwise, total control from T1, even despite a few fights.
He's just unrelenting, Drakos, it's mean!
He just wants, he's never gonna get the chance to recall. And now Doran's here to finish the job! His ulti's back up! His ulti's back up! Go, Driver! Doran's just gonna keep chasing. I don't think he can finish channeling a recall. He can't! He just wants to go home, and T1 won't let it happen. It's body bag or no back. The gates! He's gonna do it!
Wait, but now he's back on vision.
But it doesn't matter because the game is ending! Down comes the Pantheon. JunJia involved in the fight, trying to isolate off to the side. Doggo still living, but it does not matter. T1 may have faltered, but they will not drop a game. They find the victory in game one.
The back and forth here in this first game between CFO and T1. When the dust settles and the continuous brawling ends, T1 able to just win out a couple of crucial fights. I'm going to be going back to that stall when the Baron was taken. The Baron buff after a great play from CFO, wonderful fight from Driver, from JunJia, and from Doggo, right? They took down Doran, but they couldn't use that Baron buff to break the game.
Incredible stuff from T1 to get that back in their favor. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break down game one.